Okay, picture this. You've got an expensive caravan loaded with commodities and dreams, taking enough risk to make a Vegas high roller nervous. Then, bam, you get attacked by guilds who understand the caravan system better than you do, who then roll away with your stuff to claim the gold reward as their own. Welcome to the Ashes of Creation caravan system, where the only thing higher than the stakes is the chance your investment ends up as a smoldering pile of regret. Caravans in Ashes are supposed to be the lifeblood of trade and commerce, a thrilling blend of risk, reward, and PvP chaos. But as it stands, it's more like an expensive carnival game where the house always wins. Unless, of course, you're rolling with a guild the size of a small army. Small guilds and solo players might as well be carrying gold in a sack labeled free loot if they try and run a caravan. So today, we're looking at the mechanics, the drama, and the community's take on whether this system is a bold experiment in high-stakes gameplay or just another loot pinata for PvP fanatics. Let's unpack this caravan conundrum and see if there's a better way to balance the scales. The heart of the issue is risk versus reward. Caravans are billed as the cornerstone of a player-driven economy, a high-stakes adventure where courage and strategy are supposed to pay off. But right now, the balance feels less like a fair fight and more like handing over your lunch money to a schoolyard bully. Except this time, the bully also gets a shiny gold trophy for their trouble. The cost of running a caravan alone is enough to make any aspiring trader hesitate. Even a modest setup can run you 4 to 10 gold, factoring in the carriage, the chassis, wheels, and a beast of burden. For solo players or small guilds, that's a daunting price tag. Add in the hours spent farming glint to buy commodities and you're staring at an investment that's practically begging for a solid return. But what you get is anything but guaranteed. Actually running the caravan is where the real fun or frustration begins. If attackers don't swoop in to take everything you've worked for, bugs or glitches will end your run instead. Caravans getting stuck in immovable spots or vanishing entirely are common enough to feel like features instead of flaws. I've personally seen caravans trapped in terrain with no way to retrieve them, a sight as maddening as it is disheartening. And then there's the reward. After all of the effort, stress, and time spent in dragging your box of risk on wheels across the landscape over hours, the payoff often feels like loose change from a couch cushion. Assuming the cushion wasn't stolen too. The longer the journey, the better the reward, but that's only if you make it to the end. For most smaller groups and solo players, the gamble simply isn't worth taking. Meanwhile, the attackers face a far smaller gamble. For them, caravans are walking jackpots with minimal risk and maximum reward. A quick ambush, a bit of PvP action, and they're off to finish your run with your hard-earned commodities. Why bother running their own caravans when plundering others is both safer and more profitable? For a system meant to be the lifeblood of the economy, caravans need some crucial changes to how players interact with them. Random defenders should be rewarded just as generously as attackers. The risk attackers take to raid a caravan should also match the rewards they receive. If they risk little, the reward should reflect that. Proportional risk for proportional reward. Only then can the caravan system feel like the fair, thrilling gamble it's supposed to be. If I'm understanding this part correctly, the biggest issue might be the automatic announcements. The moment you set your caravan in motion, it's broadcast to everyone within a certain radius, essentially shouting, "Hey, free loot here." This removes any element of surprise for defenders and turns every caravan launch into an open invitation for PvP opportunists, instead of fostering strategic planning or spontaneous alliances. It encourages attackers to swarm like sharks smelling blood in the water. What's missing here is the player autonomy. Imagine if defenders could recruit allies from the surrounding area, just random players who decide to click the defender button, earning rewards as they help fend off attackers. Sure, the caravan owners can pay for mercenary protection before they launch in the first place, but that's just an additional gold cost that eats into their already slim profit margins of running a caravan in the first place. On the flip side, Attackers could face meaningful risks for engaging caravans, such as financial or personal penalties for failing in their attack or being killed during the attempt, even if the attack is successful. These changes would inject much-needed depth and agency into the system, encouraging more passerby players to join the Caravan PvP events, even if they don't have commodities of their own for the trip. Unfortunately, the current placeholder design favors Zerg tactics, throwing large numbers at a problem until it disappears. Large guilds dominate the system because they can deter attack, absorb losses, and swarm caravans at will, while small guilds and solo players are left to either gamble on their luck or avoid the system entirely. The result is a stagnant dynamic where the most powerful groups reap all the rewards and everyone else is left watching from the sidelines. For the Caravan system to become the revolutionary PvP risk versus reward feature it's meant to be, it needs more flexibility to let all participants experience the risk versus the reward aspect of Caravan events. Remove the automatic announcements, introduce meaningful risks for attackers, and add equally meaningful rewards for random defenders. Only then will the system feel like the open-ended player-driven experience it was meant to be. Now let's focus on the smaller scale Caravan events and creating inclusivity for small guilds and solo players. The current Caravan system is designed with a level of risk and complexity that naturally favors larger groups, leaving smaller groups and solo players feeling like second-class citizens in what's supposed to be a player-driven economy. For solo players or people running a solo caravan, running it is less of a thrilling gamble and more like a reckless leap off a cliff. With no allies to call on for help and minimal resources to spare, they're forced to take on the same risks as a large guild with only a fraction of the tools to handle them. It's the MMO equivalent of wandering solo into a medieval battlefield. Small guilds fare a little better, but not by much. Even with a handful of defenders to deter small attacks, the overwhelming power of Zerg tactics from even medium-sized guilds make defending a caravan feel like trying to hold back a tidal wave with a beach umbrella. If they manage to scrape together the resources to run a caravan, they often find themselves outnumbered and outgunned by larger groups who can easily overwhelm them and claim the rewards for themselves. What makes this even worse is the lack of incentives for casual defenders to step in and lend a hand. If a solo player or small guild could rely on nearby adventurers to jump in for a share of the reward, the system might feel more inclusive. But right now, random players have absolutely no reason to defend a caravan in passing because of the time investment and literally no benefit to them, leaving smaller groups with no choice but to fend for themselves. One solution could be dynamic scaling and risk-based rewards. Imagine if caravan rewards for attackers scaled on the level of risk they take on, encouraging smaller attacking groups to engage while discouraging mindless Zerg tactics. For instance, larger attacking groups could face diminishing returns, receiving fewer commodities when a caravan is destroyed as their numbers exceed the defenders' numbers. On the other hand, smaller attacking groups could earn higher proportional rewards for their efforts compared to the number of defenders, making it more worthwhile for players of all levels and preferences to participate in caravan events. Additionally, failure penalties could add more weight to the decision to attack in the first place. These penalties might include something like losing a portion of gold or glint, or even incurring repair costs, or worse, facing extended temporary debuffs that reduce glint or even item drops. Such consequences could transform attacking into a calculated risk rather than a low-effort opportunity for profit. Attackers could also be incentivized to engage strategically rather than en masse, or with lots of people. Certain caravans might offer tiered rewards or unique loot upon a successful attack, tailored for smaller, faster, and more precise attacking groups. This would create opportunities for solo players or smaller guilds to participate in caravan events without feeling overshadowed by the sheer numbers of larger guilds. As for large guilds running multiple caravans simultaneously, the system could limit the number of caravan events a single player can participate in at one time. For example, if a guild launches 5 caravans with 25 players guarding them all, each player could declare themselves as a defender for only one of those events. This would open up opportunities for smaller guilds to take on large guild caravan trains on more equal footing, leveling the playing field in a meaningful way. And then as a side note, if the other players in the other caravans flag up for PvP and kill the attackers attacking their buddy's caravan, and they kill the attacker, then that gives them the corrupted status, just like being in a war. If two sides are in a war and people come to the defense of one of the people attacking, because they're not flagged for PvP, they get corrupted if they kill the other player. That sort of thing is what I'm talking about here. And finally, the risk a caravan owner takes by launching a caravan should come with some level of guaranteed reward, even if the caravan is successfully sacked. A simple solution could be allowing a portion of the commodities to be automatically delivered to the nearest node after the caravan is destroyed. This would help the owner recoup part of their losses, giving them the opportunity to try again or find a small measure of success despite the setback. Offering this safety net would encourage players to keep participating in the system rather than avoiding it entirely after a loss, or in my case, a series of losses. I've attempted caravans 4 times in Phase 2, and none of them have been successful. Right now, the caravan system is a sandbox where only the biggest kids get to play. Until it becomes accessible and rewarding for players of all sizes, it risks alienating a significant portion of the player base, and in a player-driven economy, that's a recipe for disaster. The caravan system in Ashes of Creation has the potential to be one of the game's defining features, a dynamic blend of risk, reward, and PvP that contributes to the player-driven economy. But as it stands, it feels more like an exclusive playground for the largest guilds, leaving smaller groups and solo players in the dust. The issues are clear. The risk to reward balance is skewed, player autonomy is stifled, and the lack of meaningful incentives for all participants has created a system where the biggest groups reap all the rewards. To fix this, changes need to be made that encourage participation from all player types. Dynamic scaling for both attackers and defenders, meaningful risk-based penalties, and systems that reward effort even in failure could all bring balance and accessibility to the caravan system. By rewarding players for their contributions regardless of size, role, or success, the caravan system could shift from feeling like a gamble to an opportunity, an event where everyone has a stake and a chance to succeed together. If Ashes of Creation truly wants to be the Sandpark MMO it aspires to be, the caravan system can't remain a tool for the few. It has to become an experience for the many, where strategy and courage are rewarded, and where even the smallest players feel like they belong and they can make a difference. Until then, caravans will remain an unbalanced mechanic with untapped potential, a missed opportunity in a game that promises so much more. That's all I have for you today. You're welcome.